All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Waiver Wire. It is July 24th. Joined once again with Nick. We're here just previewing the NFC West. We've gone through the AFC North, the NFC North, most recently the AFC West, and now we're moving on to the NFC West. You got a couple good teams out there. I mean, you got the Rams. Last year were 13-3, went all the way to the Super Bowl. The Seahawks were in the wild card. They were 10-6, and then you got the Niners at 4-12, and the Cardinals at 3-13. Nick, so man, how do you feel about the NFC West?
Yeah, strong division. Last year, the Niners got their legs cut out from underneath them when Garoppolo got hurt. It seems like every year, starting quarterback goes down for a team, and that's basically it for their season, which it just sucks for any fan base. I really wouldn't even wish it upon my biggest rivals because it just kind of ruins the whole season for a
Seriously.
fan base, for the
Yeah.
team. And with that, the Seahawks and the Rams kind of rose to the top of the division, although I think they would have been there regardless.
Mm-hmm.
I think the Seahawks surprised people. A lot of people wanted to count them out when they got rid of the remaining Legion of Boom guys and Bennett, Richard Sherman, those type of guys. And Earl Thomas eventually got hurt. But they only need one guy, in my opinion. That's Russell Wilson. As long as he's steering the ship, I think they're going to be just fine. I think Pete Carroll continually is underrated as a head coach. I think people underappreciate his just X's and O's
I think
knowledge.
you could extend that to almost the whole coaching staff as well, even like the
Yeah,
positional coaches and stuff like that.
definitely. They're very anti-cultural right now. Most of the league is spreading things out, throwing the football, and the Seahawks, they're packing it back in, and they are consistently running the
Yeah.
ball downhill and being very physical.
So
And
so
I like
effectively.
that.
Yeah, I mean they
Yeah,
averaged 190 rush yards last year. They were first in the league. So I mean, Seattle's a force in the run game. Because you look at a lot of teams and they're like averaging 90 to 120 rush yards, and Seattle's at 190. And I almost feel like they
yeah,
wrote. We'll get into Seattle a little more later, but I feel like they rotate their running backs really well. But anyways, yeah. So we'll jump right in with the Super Bowl contenders this year. The Rams. They averaged 33 points a game. That was second in the NFL. They were top five in all offensive metrics. So sticking with the offensive side, Nick, how do you feel about this offense? How do you think they're going to look in 2019?
yeah. I think that McVay has a great system, basically outside zone running scheme and a lot of play action. He runs a high percentage of play action. He's a big believer in kind of the way you play Madden when you're little. You figure out really quick that play action is one of the best plays in the game. Why not run it, you know, first down and third down
And
instead of
Mike
just
Vick is a cheat code.
exactly, yeah, roll your quarterback out and hit guys in the flat, hit guys on out routes and out breaking patterns where they have such an advantage. And I think that McVay kind of brought that to a real life football. It helps the linemen. It helps a quarterback, in my opinion, who is just average in terms of like raw God given ability. Although I do think he's a good leader and a good dude,
Mm-hmm.
but he's surrounded by some big time weapons.
Yeah.
Hopefully, they're all going to be there next year.
He was actually an MVP candidate too for the first few weeks, like through week 7 or 8. Going through there, he was playing really well. But yeah,
Yeah,
speaking on the speaking about their receivers, him and Cup. I mean, they're number one in catchable target percentage according to Pro Football Focus. So that just speaks on their synergy, their chemistry out there on the field. On the other side of Cup, I mean, Cup went down early, but Robert Woods stepped up, and Cook stepped up. I mean, Cook's had 80 catches for 1,200 yards. Woods had 86 catches for just a little over 1,200. So I guess my question to you would be: is this the best trio of wide receivers in the NFL?
Yeah, I wouldn't consider it the best trio just because the teams that I think of that they're competing with would be the Falcons with Julio Jones, Mohamed Sanu, and Calvin Ridley. And the Browns come to mind as well if you count David Njoku, Odell Beckham Jr., and Jarvis Landry. The top tier guy, Brandon Cooks, he's not quite as good as Julio and OBJ, but I do think if you took it as a group, who would you, all three of them, the Rams' third guy, in my opinion, is Cooper Cup. he's better than the Falcons, Mohamed Sanu, or the Browns, Njoku. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's a great trio, and I think that they really complement each other well, and McVay does a really good job at using them to the best of their skill set.
Yeah, with Cleveland, I really like Callaway too. He's a real speedster.
Yeah.
But to me, the Falcons are probably number one in my book. Just Ridley was awesome last year. Ridley was great. Julio Jones is Julio Jones. And Mohamed Sanu is consistent. So I think those three guys they're pretty productive wide receivers to have on your team. But moving away from wide receivers, what do you think about? I mean, probably the biggest question mark in NFL. I don't know if you'd agree with me, but I mean, Todd Gurley is such a mystery. If you do fantasy football, where do you take him? If you're a Rams fan, do you believe in him? You know what I mean? It's just like, it reminds me of Lane Bodenhammer this year taking Le'Veon Bell with the first pick. It's just, you never know. So, what do you think about Todd Gurley?
Exactly. Yeah. In terms of fantasy, I'm staying away from him in the first round, I think, just because, last year I took David Johnson. That was an early bust for me.
Yeah.
But in terms of just, regular football, I love Todd Gurley. He's such a great player. He's always been a guy that I've loved coming out of Georgia. He wore number 3 at Georgia. It's my favorite number. They just hand him the ball and he'd make one cut at Georgia and he was gone. He was just sensational, and he continues to be sensational. But this injury is very strange. It's not something that really took him out. He's on the sideline, he's on the bike, they'd bring him in for a run, and it's just very strange. I hope it's nothing serious. He has had knee injuries in the past.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's healthy, he's, in my opinion, the best running back in the NFL. And I honestly don't think it's close when he's healthy. But it's just, is he healthy? And the way they drafted this year, it would point to the fact that the Rams are even a little nervous, considering they invested on a running back early in the third round, I believe.
Yeah, they So I mean, there's rumored to be arthritis in his knee. I can't think of an athlete that has been in a similar situation in this. I just think it's so strange. Like, I feel like the fan knows nothing basically at this point, and even almost concerning if the Rams know anything. And if they do know something, they're clearly concerned with drafting Darrell Henderson. So it's just weird to me because, I mean, Gurley's awesome. I mean, I think he's a great running back. I think he's a lot of fun to watch, and it just sucks. Like you talked about a quarterback going down. It's awful for a team. I think a good athlete going down, or even a great athlete going down, for like LeBron James last year going out. It's like people can hate LeBron, but it does suck to have like one of the most polarizing figures in that league just not be a factor for the entire year. It kind of sucks to watch, So I really hope he's healthy. I hope he can play. He had 1,251 yards rushing for an average of 5 and 17 touchdowns. He had 580 receiving yards for an average of 10 and 4 touchdowns, so in total he had 21. If you had him on your fantasy team through the first 15 weeks, you were blessed. If you picked up C.J. Anderson for Week 16, you were even more blessed because that fantasy championship game, he got you 160 yards, and Gurley just sat on the sideline. So it's tough, man. 90% of the carries and touches in the backfield went through Gurley last year, so he was taking on a heavy load. And like we talked about with them drafting Darrell Henderson, I mean he's 5'8", 208 pounds. He was the last pick in one of the first picks in the third round, and he had 1,900 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns, and averaged 10 yards a carry. So this guy was like a freak out of Memphis. I mean, what do you know about Darrell Henderson?
Yeah, he is a great fit for this offense. He's a great outside zone runner. He's one of these guys where he picks his spots really well. He's going to be a one-cut type of dude, and when he makes that one cut, he gets his shoulders square downfield north and south, and he hits another gear. He has breakaway speed, a lot like Todd Gurley. He's not quite as big as Todd Gurley, and I don't believe that he's quite as talented as a receiver, because I think Todd Gurley's just a real natural receiver, a lot like Le'Veon Bell.
Mm-hmm.
But Darrell Henderson is a really exciting prospect. I think that for a lot of people, I know there's a few that like Darrell Henderson more than Josh Jacobs out of Alabama. So I think that he is the type of guy that people really expect big things, and he is in the perfect system to utilize some of that potential.
Yeah, man, I want to ask you a question real quick too. Just the last question on them. Do you think Goff can consistently just play at this level, continuously taking a game late into the postseason?
Yeah, I think that as long as McVay is the coach and they continue to surround Goff with weapons like Todd Gurley, Woods, the guys we've mentioned, I think that he can be a distributor. I think he is very, very, very solid. I think he's a little bit like Matt Ryan. That's the player that he should, aspire to be is Matt Ryan. But I don't think he's the type of guy that is going to carry an offense with one good receiver, an average line, and an average running back. He's going to need that supporting cast around him. But to be fair, a lot of guys need that. There's not a lot of players that can just carry an offense like a Mahomes or Aaron Rodgers can do. So I think he's just really solid. There are things that make me nervous about his game because I think he just has an average arm and he has below average athleticism. And as he gets older and more expensive, there's going to be less talent around him. And I just wonder if his intelligence will be able to, balance that out for his lack of just real raw talent. But I think the people that say that they should move on from Jared Goff, they're crazy. He's a franchise quarterback. You keep him for as long as you can.
Yeah, I think the biggest obstacle for him is becoming like the clear cut leader of that offense. Like I feel like watching him, it just doesn't seem like he's like the real leader out there. I don't know. That's just something personal with me. I could be totally wrong, but like just watching him, I feel like I wanted to see him just command that offense. But going up into our backyard, man, up in Seattle, we got the Seahawks. They were 10-6. They weren't supposed to be shit last year. They lost. Who do you think's the biggest loss out of these three guys? Uh, Frank Clark, Doug Baldwin, or Earl Thomas?
That's a good question. I think that I think Frank Clark is a tough guy to replicate,
Mm-hmm.
although the Seahawks continue to find talent on that defensive line. So for me, it's between Baldwin or Frank Clark for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole Earl Thomas thing was kind of weird this year. I mean, after the Cowboys game, going up to Garrett and being like, come get me or whatever. Super weird.
Yeah, that was very strange.
Yeah. Anyways, I mean, they averaged 26.8 points a game. Last year, they were 7th, 353 yards. They were 18th. And excuse me, they weren't 109 rush yards. They were 160, which is still super impressive. Now, their turnover ratio was plus 15, and they had 43 sacks. I think, like you kind of said earlier, it doesn't matter who they put around them because their coaching staff is so solid and they have Russell Wilson. So they just continue they continue to find success. They pull success out of players. I mean, what do you think about this Seahawks team?
Yeah, I think that the Seahawks are really, really good. They're borderline like the Patriots. They just find their guys. Everyone has their list of players every year before the draft. It's A, B, C, D. And the Seahawks go, no, because we see F down here, and he is better than all those guys. And continually, they pick players later in the draft that people go, who is that? Or why are you taking him so early? And they fit their system, and the Seahawks have such conviction in their scouts and their coaches and their system to go around guys like Bobby Wagner on defense,
Mm-hmm.
Russell Wilson on offense, and Pete Carroll just gets the most out of these guys, and I think they'll just continue to do that. They may take a step back this year just because they have to play the 49ers with an actual quarterback this year. So, that might be one more loss that they didn't have last year. But other than that, I think they're going to be.
I feel like they also play I mean, they play the NFC South and the AFC North. So I feel like they're in a tough spot where, I mean, their whole division has to play it, but it's still just like, damn, those are some tough teams. You know what I mean?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, but I mean, Doug Baldwin, so he retired this last offseason. Insert Tyler Lockett. It's his time to shine. He's been awesome, I feel like, the last couple of years. He's gotten better every year playing with Russell Wilson. They drafted Metcalf, the very last pick of the second round. He's like the Incredible Hulk. What do you think about Metcalf?
Metcalf is giant. Just imagine that times like 1,000. He is He was created in some sort of laboratory. We're still unsure where, but he is about 6'3", 6'4", 230 pounds. He runs a 4.33 40, and there are people that don't think he's going to be good. So I don't know how that happens. Everybody freaks out about a short cone or a short shuttle or whatever the hell it was. And let me just tell you right now that his agent should have told him not to do it. Because if you go back and you look at the combine numbers of big receivers, they don't do it. They don't even compete in those drills because they know they're not good at them because they're tall. It's not because they can't run routes. And there are plenty of these tall receivers who just didn't do that drill, so then they don't get ridiculed for it. Why they didn't do it? Because they would have put up the same number that DK put.
Right.
So I'm not too worried about that. He's going to be amazing. He can catch. There's no question marks about his speed, toughness, or his hands. And in Seattle's offense, where it is, they want to be borderline 80% run and play action, throw the ball deep. He is perfect for it. I mean, he is basically a tight end out there blocking. He's a great blocker, very physical, and he's just bigger than all the corners. How are you supposed to handle that? And all of a sudden, 4.33 takes off right by you. And Russell Wilson is debatably the best deep ball thrower in the entire NFL. Even if you catch up to him, how are you supposed to get up to his height? I think he's a monster.
Dude, Russell Wilson is so good, and I think people think he's so good, and part of me still feels like people underrate him. I feel like uncomfortable because I feel like people do look at him and think he's a great quarterback, and I think the same thing. But I'm like, you guys are not like seeing how much value this guy. This guy's amazing. Russell Wilson's awesome. Yeah. They did a great job shoring up that offensive line this offseason as well. That's been probably the biggest issue with Seattle the last 2 to 3 years. Their offensive line hasn't been able to hold their blocks for Wilson, but they've definitely improved that this offseason. I don't want to go away from Metcalf yet. I think with Lockett and Metcalf, I just think you have the perfect deep ball threat and red zone threat. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's just like Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, except for Mike Williams adds 40 more pounds. Like, I don't know. I just think that this pairing is going to be super fun to watch. I really like it. Metcalf had 564 yards last year. He had an average of 22 yards per catch and 5 touchdowns on 7 games. So he was a big part of that offense. I mean, and then on the other side of the ball, they drafted L.J. Collier in the first round, who some people thought was like a second to third round talent. They still needed defensive end, so that's who they decided to go with. And they picked up Ziggy Ansah. Ansah, I'm gonna pass the mic to you in a second, but Nick, don't worry. But Ansah, he in 2017 had 12 sacks. Last year had 4. So just very, very inconsistent. You never know what you're gonna get out of him. But just like how highly you've talked about the coaching staff, they can pull it out of this guy. You know what I mean? He's a very high level talent guy, and you just need the right infrastructure around him, and he could get it done. But what do you think about their defense?
Yeah, I think that it's really good. I think that you nailed it with Ziggy. I think that he's going to be an 8-sack guy, and I think that's more than what anyone else could get out of him. I am a little, if I could question one thing about the Seahawks, it would be that L.J. Collier pick. I wasn't a huge fan of him coming out of TCU, but the Seahawks know a lot more than I do. So I think that they'll get something out of him. He's good versus the run. The big loss for them is going to be Jarran Reed, who's a monster defensive tackle, is going to be out for the first 6 games. So it's going to be Poona Ford starting most likely at defensive tackle, and he was an undrafted rookie last year and played really well just because he's 5'11", and there's not a lot of defensive linemen that are that short, but he just has really obviously great pad level and eats up blocks, so he's going to get a chance to really shine.
Dude, I love any people that go undrafted and just absolutely kill it. Like, you can't help but not root for those guys. Yeah, in any sport, honestly. But anyways, so we're moving down where I'm going to go this year. Week 3 in San Francisco, we got the 49ers, man. They were 4-12 last year. I kind of went a little different way with this. I kind of split it up into the good and the bad. So the good for me is, like, if Garoppolo can stay healthy, I think he can pick apart some defenses. I think he's got decent weapons. They brought in Tevin Coleman. Goodwin, Pettis, and Samuel they're fine receivers. Jordan Matthews, I think, is he's bounced around on different teams. I think he's pretty decent. So I'm not like a huge fan of any of their receivers. Obviously, I think they're all just average or barely above so. But George Kittle is a major weapon. I really liked watching him play last year. I liked also drafting him in fantasy late and then getting rewarded for it throughout the fantasy football season. But man, what do you think are some good points for this team?
Yeah, I actually really like Debo Samuel. I think that he could be their surprise leading receiver. He's really talented coming out of South Carolina, and he was drafted for Kyle Shanahan. The rumors are that that was Shanahan's dude, and he basically just vetoed any other idea to go anywhere else with the second pick, and
Nice.
they just decided he's like, I need this guy. So they went and got him, which is pretty cool. So I think he's going to be a big part of their offense. I just wanted to ask you, I mean, where would you stack up George Kittle? I mean, is he really pushing Travis Kelce and Zach Ertz, or do you need to see another year from him?
I think he's in the conversation. Um, I mean, George Kittle had a great season. He can, the biggest thing about him when he got drafted, they talked about is he's a great run blocker, and that's all they talked about. And they showed. I mean, he showed everybody like I don't just block. The second fastest tight end in the league. I can catch balls and I run routes. You know what I mean? So I think it's a sample size for him. He's done. This is like his one breakout year where he did this. I have a lot of faith he can consistently do it, but I don't want to stack him up with Ertz. I'll talk a little bit about Kittle and Ertz maybe, but Kelce to me is kind of on another level. Like Kelce's consistently done this for a long time, and just being a fan of an AFC team, I feel like we've ran into Kansas City so many times over the last 5 years, and my biggest concern is always like, I mean, Tyreek Hill obviously is one, but damn, Kelce up the middle for 30 yards on 3rd and 8. What, man? How do you stop him? You know what I mean? So, I really like Kittle. I think I don't want to say he's neck and neck with Ertz, but there's an argument to be made about him and Ertz. But I think Kelce is just, he's above him. I really like Kelce. I've always liked Kelce. I don't like the Chiefs, but Kelce I've been a fan of for a long time. Where do you
Same.
think he stacks on the three?
Yeah, I would agree. I think Kelce just deserves to be number one. I don't think that Ertz or Kittle have established themselves enough to be put in that same conversation. But one thing about Kittle that just makes him so dangerous is just how fast he is. He does not get ran down.
Yeah.
Ertz and Kelce, they can get caught.
Mm-hmm.
Kittle is fast. He does not get ran down. That's just so dangerous to be had with a guy of that size.
Dude, the upside for him is like insane. Like he could definitely be in the conversation with Kelce. It's just gonna take some time and gonna take consistently doing this. Like if he does this for another like two years, three. I mean, I'd say 2 seasons if he stays consistently doing this. It's like okay, yeah, now he stacks up. He stacks up for sure. But yeah, I think Kittle's the brightest part of their offense. I think any casual fan would say that honestly. But he's just the number one guy. So for some of the goods, they got Boza, D Ford, and DeForest Buckner. Now, I mean, on to the bad. They got a lot of money invested in Garoppolo, and I don't know, he could be really good, but right now he hasn't shown me he's really good. So, I mean, when he has played, he's been average, maybe. I don't think he's that good. I really don't think he's that good. And, I mean, they also signed McKinnon, who's also been hurting himself, and Matt Breida has an injury history. So, it's like their quarterback, their running backs all have a history of being injured. So, I think that's just difficult to believe in as a sports fan. Reuben Foster got arrested for a second domestic violence problem. He's going to be seeing a suspension. The defense was ranked 13th, but gave up 27 points a game. That to me is disgusting. Like I don't know if I could watch football if that was going on for me. But where do you think the bad spots are for this team?
Yeah, I think the weak points that I would be worried about if I'm a Niners fan, my eyes go to that secondary.
Absolutely, yeah.
Richard Sherman is still chugging along. He's still solid. He's not where he was in Seattle. Obviously, he's getting up there in age, but he's really savvy, physical defender, and just really solid. A pickup that they made that is very interesting is Jason Verrett. He's corner from the Chargers, who has been hurt, I believe, back-to-back seasons. But when he is healthy, and not a lot of people really are aware of it because he has been, I'm pretty sure, out back-to-back seasons, like didn't even play a game. He's borderline shut down corner. He is very talented, first-round pick, and if he could just stay healthy, it would be so huge for this team. But I think that is the area of concern is the secondary.
Isn't that I mean, you could argue that's the concern for almost both sides of the ball. If they could stay healthy, like McKinnon stays healthy, Garoppolo they could be a good team if they all stay healthy, but it's not likely in my opinion.
Yeah, even Nick Bosa, I mean, he's coming out of college with an injury history, with a brother who has injury history, and a father who had injury history, and that concerns me as well.
Yeah, speaking on the secondary real quick, they were the 5th worst in the league defending the deep ball as well. So, yeah, they needed to do something to address it, and they're obviously actively trying. But yeah, man, D Ford had 10 sacks for one of the worst defenses last year. So, I mean, he had 10 sacks, but I mean, it was the 31st ranked defense. I don't know how much credit goes to that. Yeah, man, do you have anything else you want to talk about on the Niners?
Yeah, I think just the big bright spot that I got to talk about him for just real quick is DeForest Buckner's got to be one of the most underrated players in the entire NFL. He is so awesome. Inside defensive tackle, just a mammoth of a human being, 6'6", 300 pounds. And you don't get it from guys that big, but he has a pass rush as well. I think that he's their best defensive lineman and their best defensive player. And he's just the anchor of that defense and still really young. And I love watching him play.
Yeah, man, Depot, he's a beast in there. It's unfortunate he's kind of stuck over there, but I mean, who knows? They're gonna get better. It's only up from here. But where would you rank Garoppolo with a 32 starting quarterbacks in the league? Where would you put him?
Yeah, that's tough for me. He's had some great games in games that don't matter. And last year, before he was injured, he was not playing well. Wasn't great. And even the play where he got injured, a lot of people really questioned, like, what are you doing? Get out of bounds, get down. It just didn't seem like things were firing quickly for him. And so it just makes you wonder where he's at. I love his release. He's very accurate. Kyle Shanahan is right there with Sean McVay in terms of offensive, design and play calling. He should get a lot more credit. But I just think he's average. I think he's more consistent than a guy like Trubisky and a little more consistent than a guy like Stafford, maybe. But I mean, it's tough to tell right now. I'm going to have to see a full season from him to really establish where I'd rank him.
Right. To me, like, comparing him to someone like Stafford is like, I mean, Stafford's just had some great seasons where, Garoppolo's hasn't. I'm just like a prove it guy, I guess you could say. Like, I want to see it happen, So it's like, for me, I thought about this for a while today, and I put him around like 25, honestly, because it's like there's other quarterbacks in the league that are, have been efficient, have been doing it. I mean, it's hard for me to put this. I don't know, man. This is very few quarterbacks I'd put behind him. Like, I got Mariota in front of him, Foles, Baker, Drew. I mean, I even got Trubisky ahead of him. Those are I just try to think of it in a perspective of like, which quarterbacks would I choose? If I got to pick any of these quarterbacks to start a franchise tomorrow? He would not be there until about 25. I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I mean, it's just kind of like, let's see it. And I'm tired of hearing about, how he was Brady's successor. He hasn't done anything.
He's making the Patriots look good is what he's doing. Damn it. Yes. But anyways, man, last team out here in the NFC West. One of the more interesting teams, in my opinion. I think the Niners are really interesting as well. But the Cardinals, dude, a rookie head coach with Kliff Kingsbury is the Texas Tech University head coach from 2013 to 2018. And he was the offensive coordinator at Texas A&M for your favorite player, Johnny Manziel, in 2012. Also, a rookie quarterback, Kyler Murray, 2018 Heisman winner. The offense is basically going to be built around him. What do you think about this team? What should we expect?
Yeah, if Kyler Murray was standing right next to me, you couldn't see him because he's that small. But no, I'm just kidding. We're probably the same height. But I'm really fascinated to watch this team. I think that Kingsbury is an interesting dude. Not a lot of people can fail upwards. He really was not that good in Texas Tech, and that was with guys like Mahomes and Davis, who is with the Giants right now. So I think that it is an interesting hire. It's one of these, oh, he's a quarterback guru, and I'm excited to watch him because, ironically, he gets his guy, Kyler Murray, the guy he wanted when he was the coach at Texas Tech, the guy he wanted when he transferred from Texas A&M, and now he gets him in the NFL, and he's supposedly the perfect quarterback for this system. I think it's going to be really exciting because they just went all out on weapons. Hakeem Butler, Andy Isabella, Larry Fitzgerald, Christian Kirk. They signed some interesting tight ends, and Max Williams, who was a first-round pick for the Ravens a few years ago. And I believe they have Charles Clay as well. It's a really
Charles
good
Clay.
move.
Oh man, I'm happy you brought him up. I love that.
Yeah,
I love that guy. He's always on my fantasy team for no reason.
Yeah, Ricky Seals-Jones too.
Yeah.
So plenty of guys to throw to, not a lot of guys to block for, and obviously the best guy left out is David Johnson. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think they could catch some teams off guard early, especially if he runs up tempo similar to the way Chip did when he was with the Eagles. But I just wonder if Kingsbury is mature and ready enough to, run an NFL franchise. The team's young, he's young. They're going to be really fascinating to watch.
You talk about them catching teams off guard, and some people might hate this, but it just reminds me of when we were doing the AFC West, and I was talking about the Broncos. I think the Broncos will catch some people off guard too.
Definitely, with that defense, yeah.
Yeah, so Kyler Murray, I can't talk, my bad. Kyler Murray had 5,000 total yards last year and threw for 42 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, completed at almost 70%. And, he ran for 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns, so he was the guy. I think when I talked about my League Pass team for basketball being the Bulls with Kobe White, my League Pass team for football is going to be the Cardinals because of Kyler Murray. I just think it'll be a fun team to watch. David Johnson, he's another big question mark for me. He hasn't been the same since 2016. The wrist injury sidelined him for 2017, and he just wasn't the same last year. I think he was still a solid player, but what do you think we should expect out of David Johnson? Should we expect to see him return to his final form and just wreck everybody, or what?
I think that he's going to be very productive this year, but I don't think it's going to be in the same way just because the offensive line isn't any good. But I think that David Johnson is going to be a receiving machine. I think that they're going to line him up in the backfield. They're going to give him the ball.
Mobile quarterback, mobile running back, the whole offense.
Yeah. And they're going to motion him out and go 5 wide because he is such a talented receiver. And in terms of, running backs that can carry the load and be receivers, it's McCaffrey, Le'Veon Bell, Todd Gurley, and David Johnson. Those are the guys. And David Johnson can go out there and actually run routes. And if he's manned up versus linebackers, that's going to be huge advantage. And I think he's going to be a big-time receiver and just have enough rushing yards to be maybe somebody that I consider in the top 5 of the fantasy draft. But we won't get into my layer of fantasy football.
I got a question. You didn't bring up Kevin White, so I want to ask you, what would you have told the Cardinals GM if you worked for the Cardinals and he's like, I'm thinking about bringing in Kevin White? What would you say?
Yeah, I don't have anything against Kevin White. He is a player that has just been hurt. And I feel so bad for those guys because fans and fan bases, they just pile on this guy. And I was probably guilty of it at least once or twice, especially early, because you're just so excited for a player who, if anyone wants to go back and watch Kevin White highlights at West Virginia, he looks like flipping Julio Jones. He's unbelievable. He ran a 4.3 at the combine. He's just shredded. Look up pictures of him on vacation last year. It's crazy. I hope that he's healthy because he's a good dude. That was never a problem.
Yeah.
Great team player. He had a huge block last year on a Tariq Cohen screen that broke it for a touchdown late in the season. So, he's the type of guy that's going to be able to block on those quick screens that I imagine Kingsbury's going to like to run. behind a player like Kevin White or Larry Fitzgerald, who's also an amazing blocker. So
Man,
I think
receivers
he'll
that can
fit in.
block are so much fun to watch. So much fun
Yeah.
to watch.
So I mean, for a cheap player, I'd bring him in for sure.
Yeah. So their defense, they added their new defensive coordinator, Vance Joseph. They went from a 3-4 in 2017 to a 4-3 in 2018, and now they're going back to the 3-4, and it seems like the defense is pretty happy about it. Real quick, their offensive line, too. Their offensive line struggled last year, but they added Marcus Gilbert, who's ex-Steeler. Great guy, great player, awesome. Love that guy. He's going to do big things for Arizona. And they also brought in Desmond Harris and J.R. Sweezy, hoping to, help shore up that offensive line a little bit for the rookie quarterback. But anyways, yeah, speaking on their defense, what do you think we should expect out of this defense next year? I mean,
It's an interesting group.
mm-hmm.
It is some very young guys, and then they also signed some real veterans to bring in T. Sizzle and Terrell Suggs, and they bring in Jordan Hicks from the Eagles, who's been a very productive player.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick Peterson is going to be suspended for a few games. But then they also have some very young and exciting pieces like Byron Murphy, who was widely considered a first-round draft pick. They got him in the second, along with his fellow Husky at the safety position, Budda Baker. So I think it's interesting. Hassan Reddick's going to get his one final chance as an inside linebacker. He was just basically not given a chance last year, which is ridiculous. But it's an interesting group. They spend some money, and I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how it works out.
Yeah, I think, their team had 49 sacks last year. Their turnover ratio is -12. And they allowed opposing teams to sack their quarterback 52 times. So,
yeah,
them bodying up that offensive line is definitely going to help, getting a mobile quarterback. Their quarterback before was pretty mobile too. But, just shoring up that offensive line is going to help quite a bit. I think Terrell Suggs leaving Baltimore is like an end of an era. That's crazy. But, yeah, man, this team, I don't think they're going to do nothing big. They're a young team. They're going to go places. Kyler Murray, they're going to build around him. I don't expect these guys to go 8-8 by any means or anything like that. But NFC West looks good, man. NFC West will be fun this year. Do you have anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's about it. It's going to be, I think the Rams take the division. I think the Seahawks are in it for a wild card again, and everybody else is looking to the draft.
Dude, this is the hardest one for me, I feel like, to pick a winner. Like, I don't know. It's a tough one. Normally I pick the people that are kind of defending because I believe in 9 times out of 10 I believe in those guys, but I think Seattle looks real good too. So
yeah,
I don't know if my arm had to be twisted into it, I'd probably pick the Rams. But we'll see, man. It'll be a fun division. I like this division a lot. But anyways,
yeah. One last guy I got to shout out because this will be the only punter that I shout out. Michael Dixon, best punter in the NFL, Seattle Seahawks. That guy's amazing.
Dude, it's fun to watch the punting when their celebrations are tired. I like it. But anyways, our social medias are right down there under Nick. Once again, I'll figure this out one time. But give us a follow, subscribe, like, comment, share, whatever it is you do. We really appreciate any of the support you guys give us. It means a lot to us. It means a lot to me. I know it means a lot to that guy over on the other end. So appreciate you guys watching. Thanks, Nick. We'll see you later, man.
See ya.